All right, I am Michael Mays. I'm the National Register Coordinator for the State Historic Preservation Office. Our first little breakout here is Raising Washington, Preserving the Legacy of African American History in Stillwater. This discussion includes team members who work together to save the historic Booker T. Washington School in Stillwater. The building was recently returned to city ownership after being abandoned for more than 2 decades and enduring years of persistent flooding. The all-volunteer efforts to save the historic structure have engaged a broad spectrum of community support from OSU faculty and City of Stillwater employees to Washington School alums and concerned residents. Washington School is the only standing example of an all-black segregated school in Payne County. And I will turn this over to you.
Thank you. Thank you. Short person mic levels. It's okay. Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here and have the chance to talk about a really special community project. And we're finally at a place where we can start sharing some of what we've done leading up to this point and some of what we have planned for the immediate future. We're going to start with some quick introductions and go down the line. My name is Dr. Laura Arata. I'm Associate Professor of History at Oklahoma State University. I've been lucky enough to direct the public history program for the last several years, and Washington School has been among one of the projects I've been lucky enough to work on and one of my most treasured. So I'm really excited to be here and talk more about this effort. We're going to let Karen introduce herself and work out our microphone handoff. There we go.
Okay, can you hear me? Awesome. My name is Karen Washington. I was born and raised in Stillwater, Oklahoma, and I'm presently the president of the Washington School alumni team. Also the president for the Washington School Advisory Committee that was appointed by the City of Stillwater, and also the vice president on the Washington Heritage Foundation Committee. So the Washington School is very, very important to me, and I'm really excited about the directions we've come and the plans we've got for the future.
Good afternoon. My name is Norman McNickle. I am happily retired after 46 plus years of service to the City of Stillwater in various capacities, the last one being city manager. I'm also on the Washington School Heritage Foundation Board and am interested to see that building restored.
There's a little bit of a delay, and I like the suspense it's building.
Hi, my name's Michelle Charles. I was city editor for the local newspaper for quite a few years and became aware of Washington School that way. I now work for the City of Stillwater, and I feel very fortunate to be in a position now where rather than waiting for someone else to do something so I can write about it, I can actually be part of the effort to do something.
Next up is Nathan.
Hello, my name is Nathan Koob. I'm an architect. I've been working in Tulsa the past 25 years. Been involved in a number of historical projects previously. I'm with a firm named One Architecture. We're just coming off work on the Gilcrease Museum and beginning work on the Will Rogers expansion in Claremore. So happy to be involved with this group and this project.
One architect is never enough. Like what I did there.
Hi, I'm Assistant Professor Sarah. I teach architecture at Oklahoma State University, and I've been fortunate to be involved with the Washington School project for a couple of years now. I serve on the Washington School Heritage Foundation Committee, so I've had it's been a great opportunity, and I've been able to work with some architecture students to introduce them to Washington School and get them involved in the process, so very excited to be here with you today.
Hello, my name is Jamie Schussler, and I'm an assistant professor in civil and environmental engineering at Oklahoma State University. There are several engineering challenges that I think we'll see today in the presentation, and I've been lucky enough to guide a couple of senior design groups on this project, and it's just been a wonderful, humbling experience getting to see these students really interact with an extremely meaningful project in the community and see how that impacts them as early engineers.
And then finally, he's not with us today, but we wanted to just acknowledge James Beckstrom, who is currently the president of the Washington School Heritage Foundation, deeply involved in our community. Jim has decades of experience with project building, and even though he couldn't be with us, we wanted to acknowledge his role in getting these efforts started. So I'm going to give a quick just a history and a little overview of Washington School, and then we'll move into sort of more of a roundtable, everybody talking about this building and its significance. I wanted to start by just sharing a few images. These came from several our different cleanup days and site visits. I think I managed to find a picture of every single one of us up there engaged in doing something with Washington School, except for Nathan. Nathan was elusive on camera for these, but keep these in mind because these pictures very much matter for sort of illustrating the effort towards where this is all headed. So this is a story about a beating heart. Right, and you can see from those pictures, all of us that are up here on this stage have been involved in rolling up our sleeves and helping to resuscitate it. This is not a project that we talk about, it's a project that we do. The desire to see Washington School rescued has brought us together. That's one of the core messages that we hope comes through on this session. We came together to save a building, and in doing so, we've deepened and strengthened community ties in some really profoundly meaningful ways that we think will resonate. And we're here to talk today about why this structure matters, of course, but also it's the community surrounding it that matters most, and that was true for past, present, and in the future for all of us. So a very short history. Before the brick structure that you see in this picture existed, there was a Washington School that was built from wood and painted white, and it served children from kindergarten to 8th grades. African American residents of Stillwater lived in an area known as the Ville, which Karen can talk a little bit more about, and it skirted the southwest corner of city limits. In 1938, New Deal programming made possible the construction of this brick building, which was completed in 1938. And at that time, Washington School expanded to include high school. The community around it expanded too. Here's the original notice in the newspaper of the construction company being hired to construct Washington School. During the 1940s, the Ville was bustling with activity. It featured grocery stores, restaurants, barbershops, an ice cream shop, a juke joint, and residents had necessary items and treats and services available. The picture in the middle here is Mrs. Elnora Sanders with her hand-drawn map that she made several years back when we were trying to do some documentation of the Ville. And because it wasn't within city limits, we couldn't find a good map that illustrated where things were, what businesses were there, what had been available. And so Mrs. Sanders came through with a map. And if you see, as you look like right in the middle of the map that she's holding, the school is right there in the center of everything, right, surrounded by the other businesses. The student body at Washington School expanded programs from school plays to fashion shows to spelling bees and engaged the community. And as opportunities for students expanded, so did the school itself. In 1951, additions were made that included the installation of a wood shop, a machine shop, which had electric saws, lathes, pretty up-to-date equipment for that time period. Washington School at that point in time had the only boot and shoe repair training facility in the area, which we just learned. Another part of the school had a home economics classroom that resembled a laboratory, complete with a model home. And I'll let Sarah and Nathan talk about it, but we have the coolest little architectural feature hidden in there that we'll show a picture of in a minute. An increasing number of Washington School graduates went on to college, professional careers, doctors, lawyers. But this was always a story of resilience and regular rebuilding because Washington School and the Ville flooded all the time. So inundated with water, mud, debris, proximate sewer lines in the area backed up and overflowed whenever there was flooding. Those lines, as a note, served the town but not the Ville, which again was still outside of city limits up to a point. And Washington School bore the brunt of a lot of those storms. You can see it's directly in the middle of this photograph. So the bigger shape you see is the school. But it remained a safe haven. One alumni recalled recently, there was a lot of things I couldn't do, but one thing I could do was go to that school and feel safe. Charles McGlory played basketball. During the 1940s and 1950s, the Washington Bears, it's a current picture I'll come back to in just a second. The Washington Bears fielded both basketball and football teams that regularly won the highest titles that were available for all black teams in the state. In 1956, Oklahoma held its first integrated high school basketball championships in the state's history. And against all the odds, even though they were sharing uniforms, they didn't even have enough uniforms to go around the whole team in that year. The Washington Bears won. They won the C-Class championship, the very first integrated Oklahoma Stillwater high school basketball championships. They never got to celebrate their victory at the school because that year schools were integrated, this big flood happened, and most students didn't go back. So remaining grades were integrated and the building ceased to function as a school. But it continued to serve the community in other ways. In the 1970s, it was repurposed into the first homeless shelter in the city. I'll let Norman talk about that some more. In the 1980s, it housed various community action programs. And while the building changed, the Ville also changed. Urban renewal and other programs moved many residents out, relocated them, which Karen can highlight. And the building passed into private ownership and became increasingly dilapidated into what it looks like today. So that's where we begin our waiting game and what was supposed to be a story of destruction. So the first time I met Karen, it was with the building in that limbo. It was our initial conversation that she described it to me as the beating heart of a community. And with that, I want to turn it over to Karen to talk a little bit about the significance of the school for the community.
Thank you so much, Laura. She mentioned earlier about the Ville, the village. It was called the Ville because the blacks in the community could only go so far east, so far west, or so forth north. So we was just in that particular area. Now, I will tell you now, I'm one of the younger ones of the group, but anyway, I was down there like the kindergarten first, second grade at Washington School. But in that group where they had like stores, there was a little hotel, a food place, had a laundromat. So for us, we were just one big happy family. That's the reason we consider ourselves the beating heart of the community there, because everybody took care of everybody. So it was the school there, good education there, had the City of Stillwater. We couldn't go to the other schools, but the library would always provide books. So I don't know how that happened, but they made sure we had books. We had some good teachers, some very strict teachers, very organized teachers, and they didn't just teach us education, they taught us about life. They taught us about being responsible for ourselves, not an excuse. So it's basically, if they give you lemonade, you make some good lemonade. You don't cry and say, I want orange juice because everybody else got orange juice. So they taught us how to survive, which made everybody stronger, instead of looking at what we didn't have, working with what we did have. So we would have, the park was right there by the school. We had 2 churches in the Ville where we could go that we would attend. Everybody was required to attend church, and then we would all go to the park, and then we'd all fellowship and hang out and have a good time in that community. So that school was very important to a lot of the people who attended it, because it gave them their foundation that made them who they are and who they were when they went on. So a lot of them left there with that educational foundation and became lawyers, they became doctors, they became teachers. So when you look at the story that you've got this group of area where this is the only place you black people can go. So there's another place and there's the other big old community out there, but you stay right here. But when you think about it, anyone that you talk to that really lived there any length of time, they have happy stories and happy memories there because that was a good foundation for them. So on the surface, it sounds terrible. In fact, I was so young when I was coming up, I remember our church leaked. And they would always say when they integrated, you can invite some friends to the Vacation Bible School program. And I'm thinking that would be a no, because we got a few buckets sitting in here, and I don't want to bring them down here. But I was younger then, so I didn't quite understand. But as I continued to grow, they taught us to be proud of whatever we had and to know that we were blessed and we could make it, we could be strong, and we could endure. So that was more than just a school. It was a community of love, a community of family. We looked out for each other. Houses leaked. Canoes would come through and rescue us sometimes with the water being so full. So we dealt with a lot of that, but we still came out strong. We didn't have bad attitudes, still happy people. You know, we let the water go away. You help each other get the house back together. Then you go to the park and celebrate, have fun, barbecue. So it was a good community. Things changed, and they realized the impact is when urban renewal came through. So you imagine somebody come through and say, I got a house for you that won't leak. It won't even be in the flood zone. And in fact, you can have air conditioner. Everybody's excited. So they got the houses, and then they were given houses, or the house process went through. But what they did was they broke up the family. And once the family got there, they realized they sprinkled us across the city of Stillwater. We weren't welcome in the neighborhood like the neighborhood and the family areas that we grew up to. You come home and the neighbors next door, they rush into the house so they don't have to speak to you. So you were in an environment. We were, as a family, if my mom worked late, she'd say, go to sister's house, Sister Dickens' house, you go there until I get out. We just took care of each other. Everybody went to church, everybody went to school. So when we got the leaks, where houses didn't leak anymore, we didn't have the flood anymore, we lost our beating heart that we had in our community with each other. So now we're dealing with neighbors who doesn't want us there. But remember, we had the foundation to survive that, to exist there as well, because we had the foundation that you don't want us here, we're supposed to be here, I'm going to still speak and wave, you don't have to, but that's just what I do. So we learned how to exist that, but we did miss that. So out of all the things that we went through, the things that hit us the hardest is when they broke up our family, when they stopped our roofs from leaking, when they gave us air conditioner. We lost the thing that was the most important to us, and that was the heart of our family, being together, looking out for one another, and going in an environment that did not want us there. But we do thank God that we were prepared, not knowing that that's what we would go through. Hey, not a problem. Went straight through it without a problem. Still didn't have the roof leaking. Still had good days. And it was just a little more challenging because we had to try to go to each other versus just being in a community of love. So Washington School is very important. My alumni, when we started having the reunions, they had 402 in attendance, and I'm down to about 70. So a lot of people has gone home. We'll celebrate the 25th reunion this year in August for our Washington School alumni, of those who attended the school. I think I've got maybe 2 left living that actually graduated from Washington School. So we're very, very pleased, and definitely pleased with the community that's stepped up to make our legacy, the things that we went through in our life. We were important, we were an impact. And now it's been acknowledged and told, and we're excited because it's good Black history, I promise you that.
Well put, and I want to transition with this slide. Oh, I'm sorry, did I? Not trying to speak over anybody. So it is ironically the flooding that saved this building. It was because the flood zone, as you can see, the Washington School is in the back behind the little yellow road sign that's flooded. This is from 2019, the picture on the right. And it was all the challenges of trying to mitigate that really scared off potential buyers for a long time, which is what left the building there for us to be able now to start working on these community efforts to save it. As part of those initial efforts, at one point, I desperately needed a logo made yesterday for free, and I reached out to Sarah Raw, and she graciously put one together. So I would like to turn it over to her and Nathan to talk a little bit about the architectural significance of the building itself.
Yeah, so looking at the images behind you, I was fortunate when I became involved in the project to be able to take, which I have undergrad students, so I took some undergraduate students over to tour the building for a hypothetical design project. And we were able to really look at the condition of the building. Of course, they're students, so we didn't have any professionals involved yet. But we were able to share the history of that. I was also able to share with a couple of my students who were working on the solar decathlon. We're able to visit with Karen Washington and to hear some of the stories and to learn the history about the school. And I think that was really, really impactful for both me and the students as well. So it was really great. In terms of the architectural condition of the building, it's really in great shape considering what it's been through. Laura was talking about the flooding and the significance of that and potentially deteriorating a structure like this over such a long period of time. However, the trusses that you see behind are in excellent shape, original redwood trusses. And so there's so much that we can save. So we were delighted to bring Nathan Koob on board with his team and to be able to really start to professionally look into this building and our potential for saving it. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'll just add on to that a little bit. The building is in great shape, and we're doing a deeper dive investigation. Actually, we're going to try and do that this following week. So we've been delayed a couple times now because of the rain. Really, as we look at restoring the building and, looking at where is the deterioration, what are the problems, where is the water coming in, really what's important is that we're looking at not just putting Band-Aids on it, not fixing the symptoms. What we want to do is we want to dig deep, we want to explore, we want to find out what are the pathologies of the deterioration, where's that deterioration really coming from, what is the root cause of it. Those are the things we want to fix. Initially looks like it's going to be I want to say an easy effort, but fairly straightforward effort to get this building restored. A couple other things I'll say about the architecture of the building. One of the things I think is great about Washington, hearing Karen speak about the community and what the building represents. I think the building does a great job physically of doing that just because of the scale, the proportions of the building, the masonry work, the sizes of the things. It really relates to people and to the community. Buildings are just that, buildings. Architecture is something different. Architecture is something that speaks to spirit, that speaks to the strength of something, speaks to the strength of mankind. And I think this building does that here, particularly hearing Karen speak about what this building represents and the community that it represents. And it makes you wonder, is it about the building or is it about the history that the building represents? Well, I think it's both, and I don't think you can separate the two. That's why I think it's so important that this building and this site's revitalized, because I don't think a monument can represent the rich history of the community that Karen's speaking of. You have to have the building to do that. So I think this project and this effort is extremely important.
Sarah, do you want to talk about the tiny faux fireplace for just a second? It's one of our favorite architectural features.
Cannot forget this important architectural detail. So I think, I'm not sure who discovered it first, but had been there all along. This was a mystery to us, not knowing exactly what had happened here in this mysterious small fireplace that did not function as a fireplace. And so we finally, through Dr. Arata's research and talking with alums, realized that this was part of a home ec program. So it was actually a whole setting that had been donated to the school that had a living area, the fireplace. So mystery solved and a very important part of the school's history. So, yeah.
can see that room is in a little bit of rough condition, but tiny faux fireplace will be rescued. If it's okay. We want to talk a little bit about engaging community, and I hope you're getting the sense from this. It really truly is a community effort. It's brought together a whole bunch of people who may or may not have crossed paths otherwise, but for this building. And it's really brought us together in some profound ways. So I'm going to let Norman and Michelle and Karen and anybody else who wants to jump in talk for a little bit about why the community side of this matters so much.
Following desegregation, the building was used for a variety of purposes, and those people cared about it. It was community action and homeless shelter, as Dr. Arata mentioned. Then later, when it was determined that, again, because of the flooding and some of the environmental issues, that a new homeless shelter should be built, the City of Stillwater years ago decided that they could sell the building to raise funds for a new homeless shelter, and that homeless shelter was built, and the building fell into private hands. It was in great peril following that move to private hands, including a time when there was a proposal made to the city council for a commercial development at the location. And the developers, in their graciousness, acquiesced to a small monument on a corner of the lot to the Washington School. With the exception of the Alumni Association, frankly, not many people cared about it. It was an old building that had fallen into disrepair, and there was no future use that was seen for the building. At any rate, time marched on, and the city began to grow, roads were improved, other developments came along, and through some contacts I had in the city, I talked to a gentleman who graciously and anonymously donated a lot of money for us to be able to purchase that building back, and some tax breaks given by the city to the original private owner. And then people began to care. In fact, the matter is, when I called Karen, because I was under a lot of NDAs until the deed was actually in our hands, I didn't talk to anybody about it. And when I called Karen, I don't know that she quite believed me for a few minutes about it. Because she was certain that the building was going to eventually be destroyed, and we all thought that. But since that time, it has been really nice to see the community engagement. We've had a lot of people involved. We've had a couple of fundraising galas. It's sold out. And we've had a lot of people involved in work days. And so we hope the future is bright for the original, what we call a T structure of the building. And as our architect friend said, it's in remarkable shape for what it's been through. So I will pass this off to Michelle for additional information.
As you can see, we had a lot of community participation at the various work days. The fundraising galas were great because they really did help raise awareness. The first one, we were able to honor the 1956 state championship basketball team. They got championship rings. We had banners and posters with their names and photos on them. So it was a really special thing, and that got people really excited, I think, about the project. I worked for the newspaper when the developer proposed rezoning the land so that Washington School could be knocked over and redeveloped as an office building, or have an office building developed on there. And I remember that there was a real lack of awareness. Like, a lot of people just didn't know what that building was. They just thought it was this old building that had been sitting there forever and had no clue the significance. There were members of the city council at that point who were shocked when members of the community showed up and said, no, this was our school, this is important, you can't do this. They were absolutely shocked because they had no idea what they were considering. It's been great to see the community response since we have started the cleanup days, since we've started doing the fundraising, since we've started aggressively telling the story of Washington School. The first cleanup day, we had more than 50 community members show up to do some really dirty, hard work. It was not, I mean, it was a fun day, but it was a really hard, fun day. We had a lot of students show up. That's one thing that's been so great is the connection with Oklahoma State University and the Oklahoma State University students. As a mother of a young person, I know that young people are hungry to be involved in something that feels significant, that feels important. So, and they really have responded to that. Our last cleanup day was strictly OSU students. They have a program called Into the Streets, and we organized it for one of those days, and they came out and chiseled mortar off of bricks because we are trying to preserve as much of the original structure as we can, as much of the original parts of Washington School as we can. And I went around telling them the story so they wouldn't think we were just engaging in character building. So I wanted them to know that these are actually going to be used in the landscaping. We have plans for this. Anyway, it's been exciting, and I'm going to pass it off to Jamie.
Sure. So as Michelle started to mention, there's been awesome opportunities for OSU students to get involved, and these cleanup days are just one of the examples. When I was leading my first senior design group to go out and look at the structure of the building to see if it was structurally sound from an engineering perspective, we had our students in masks and safety glasses. I remember Norman having to come with a drill and take plywood off for us to enter the building, and it was a totally different experience by the time I got to my third senior design group who was going to this building. We could walk in the doorway. We weren't stepping over top of fallen ceiling tiles. And it's been awesome because every time we've gone out, either Karen or somebody else from the community who had that lived experience was there. I remember one day Laura saying, hey, we're going to take the plywood down. We have some access to the building. If you have time, why don't you come on over? And it's one of those days. It was really stressful. It was a packed day, and I wasn't sure, but I messaged the students. I said, hey, do you think we can make it over there? And we did, and there was another community member, Iris, who was there, and it just turned into this really lighthearted day. There was somebody who had drawn hopscotch out on the sidewalk, and the students then got to play hopscotch with Iris and hear her stories around the Ville. So Michelle started to mention some of the OSU student opportunities, and it's been through cleanup. It's been through looking at this from an engineering lens, and we really try to tell them engineering, while our students are very good at calculations and doing a lot of math and the technical work, you're doing, as a civil engineer, you are doing work for the community. This project has given them that opportunity to really see the human side of it. The other thing that's been really exciting is that a lot of times our engineering projects are on these new developments, these office buildings that are proposed, or a new road going in. And we don't have the opportunity to work on a lot of historical sites. And so this has presented some really, really unique experiences for our students. And I think that they're going to be better engineers, and they're also just going to be better community members when they can have some of this perspective and this lived experience with them. So I'll pass it off to Karen.
Okay, one area that I think Norm mentioned that I want to piggyback off of, when he called me, you know how you get some good news, but if it says it sounds too good to be true, it may not be true. That was me when Norm called, even though I was excited. But I think one of the things that is really important for the city of Stillwater, at least for the Washington School alumni, the ones that actually live where they couldn't cross 9th Street, Duck Street, they had to stay there, and they made life good for themselves. But one of the things that's really been very impactful for them is the city of Stillwater immediately, when the time came, created a advisory committee. And they were very thoughtful of the Washington School alumni, wanting them to have some input and to share and to help restore the building and have some things. But I don't know if the city realized how much that impacted, because you think about going years, 50 years, thinking you don't care. Those are some black people south of town, and you got some that says, I didn't even know y'all was down there. I wonder what that school was for. So they always wanted their story told because it was important, and they were very proud of what they went through and how they was able to come out on top. But they couldn't tell the story on the other side of 9th Street or Duck. So when City of Stillwater has now taken on the action, and when they worked, the very first work day, I remember my uncle said, it was a lot of white people there. Because when they grew up, remember, it was just all the blacks down there. So blacks against the whites. So for me, it's also a healing process. It's a learning process. And that's the reason people have to understand how important history is. I didn't make those decisions 100 years ago. But I got to tell the story, so I won't make the decisions today. So if we don't tell the story and keep the history alive, and that's what the Washington School does, it tells the story. I'm not blaming you. There's no reason for tension between you and I. What we need to do is learn the story and be the community we want to be that includes all of us. And that is what makes an awesome community. I've never looked at a garden with one color flower all the way in and thought it was beautiful. But when you get a garden with a pink rose, a red rose, a yellow rose, isn't it beautiful? So when you get a community that jumps aboard, comes on board, and we all work together for a better future for our kids and the next group, that's what it's all about. And you can't do it unless you know my story and I know your story. We respect each other's story, and let's put together the new story and make it happen. So that's what the city of Stillwater has done. That's been very awesome, and we appreciate it. I don't know if they realize how much we appreciate it, because sometimes we still tiptoe around and say, oh, that was terrible. But don't let it be terrible. Let it be the foundation for something great. That experience that we had was the foundation for something great. And I'll tell you, it wasn't terrible for us. We had a good ending. We had a good ending, so we can still have a good evening. So we like to express our thank you to the city of Stillwater and all those that's in the community, whether you're working, praying, or donating. It takes all of us to make things the way they should be and have an awesome community, and that's what Stillwater's going to have. So you better make a plan to drive through, because we're finna do great, great things in Stillwater. Thank you so much.
I can't wrap it up any better than that. I'm gonna, off script, go back to an earlier picture that I think sums all this up, and we'll just have it in the background we've got, I think, a couple minutes for questions and answers. I mean, you can see this building's been through a lot. It's got a lot of graffiti. It's been broken into quite a bit over the years. But one of the days that Jamie is talking about, actually had a picture of it on our very first slide. So there's a lot of graffiti in this building. This picture of Karen in the right-hand corner was an early day, and Hopscotch Day with Jamie is actually this picture down at the bottom, the second over from the left. And so there were, some profanities on the wall, and we were just tired of looking at them. We had students from international all over the place that were with us that day, and Norman was still the city manager, and I was still quite intimidated by Norman McNickle and having his number in my phone. But I called him and said, okay, how much trouble would I get in if I just go buy some spray paint and paint over this? Because we've got a news reporter coming in a little bit, and we've got some things on the wall that are just pretty upsetting to have to look at. And he was like, you can buy all the spray paint you want as long as you spray paint over some of the other profanities that are on other parts of the building, okay? So we had a whole day. It was me and Jamie and some of our students, engineers and history students, just spray painting over penises and swear words and all kinds of things were disappearing. But on this wall, we thought it would be special. The 1956 class that we just celebrated their basketball team, they just got a state championship ring for the first time in 2024 at our last gala. They had a class motto, and their class motto was, "Don't wait for something to turn up, turn it up." And we loved that. So we spray painted over all the bad words, and we spray painted "turn it up" over them as just kind of a mantra. There's some new spray paint up in this building, but no one has touched that. So we're riding that sentiment. So I think we're kind of towards our time, but we have time to take some questions. Yeah.
Working my way. All right, who's first? We're going to arm wrestle over it?
In 1957 or 58, we wrestled at Washington, and we wrestled in two converted classrooms into wrestling rooms. And the basketball team played in the gym, and they kept the wrestlers and the basketball players apart so that nobody would get hurt.
We grew up in Stillwater. My husband's name is John Gwynn. I'm Pat Gwynn. And there was that time, Karen, when, of course, girls couldn't be involved because it was 4 girls could be in organized sports, but the guys came back and forth. And we haven't been included in any of the galas because we're just local people, but we would really like to be a part of this. We grew up in Stillwater since 1954. Is when I came to Stillwater. John's dad came in 1954. And we're just real proud of what you're doing and what Nathan's architecture firm is doing. And so we're going to try to get involved in any way that little old people in Stillwater can get involved. And I'm sure Norman can help us do that.
Everyone is welcome at our galas. The next one will be coming up. If you go to WashingtonSchoolHeritageFoundation.org, that's where Sarah built us a beautiful website, and that's where we're putting all our updates.
I'm Linda Davis. I live in Stillwater. I was born in Stillwater, but my parents moved away. This is my husband, Steve. We're educators, now retired. Yes. So, anyway, what I want to say is I have learned so much in this last few minutes because we drive by the school every day to go to town, every day. And now the bricks are piled up, and I'm like, what are they going to do with the bricks? I could use them in my yard, or whatever. But it's has been really fun for us in the last few months to see things happening to the school after it sat there for so long. And of course, we have Officer Carlos. You didn't have him that they relocated him. Yeah. But it's just so exciting to see this and to be able to put a story. And the big thing is I've seen the signs around Stillwater bring it into the streets. What's that? I didn't know. Now I know. And I'm so excited for it. Thank you.
Oh, we have a great story about Norman and Officer Carlos, too, and Washington School. Can I tell this story, Norman? So for several months, we had a very large wild turkey that was stalking the lot next to Washington School, and people affectionately named him Officer Carlos, the 12th Avenue Tactical Turkey. He has a large Facebook following, and he was eventually, relocated. But Norman goes by the school regularly. The front door is right through this dark alley, and we finally have a door, thanks to Norman. That was an exciting development. And Norm goes over to check on it all the time, and there was one day he tells me where he showed up in all his hunting gear, like he was getting ready to go hunting, but he stopped by to like check on the school on the way, and there are 2 police officers sitting out there, and he walked up and one of them goes, "Oh no, you're not here to shoot Officer Carlos, are you?" And that story lives rent-free in my head for forever.
You know, having been, I don't know if I need a microphone or not. I was a principal for 10 years in Stillwater at the middle school, and known Norm for 20-some-odd years, and had his sons, and then we go back, and you know, Norm is such a driving force in our town. To have him still on this board, realizing that he spends a lot of time in his other place in Colorado. We're both Colorado residents too at the time. But to have him on your board is just really great, and I'm excited to see what this becomes. What are your plans on when this is all done, what is going to occupy this building?
It's a great question for Norm to take.
So the generous donor, we put some caveats in with the deed, which protects that building, protects the uses. So education, history, community events, and recreation are the items that will be there. And we envision, when we say history of that building, history of the Ville, the black community, and history of the heartbeat of Stillwater for that community.
Y'all are lucky to have him. He's a good guy.
If we can do 1 or 2 more? Okay.
Hello, thank you for sharing all of this information. My name is Sadie. I'm the multicultural officer here at the Historical Society. So when it comes to multicultural, the Black or African American population in Stillwater is 5% of the population. And so when you're talking about the storytelling and the history of it, and how you're sharing it, are you including the stories being told by some of the students from that school? And how is it, I wonder how it's being framed as to, are there any lawyers that went outside and came back, any sports player, any of those historical figures that have contributed largely to Oklahoma? If you can name any of those to help us, the rest of us, get to know them, that'll be interesting as well.
For us in the state of Oklahoma, a lot of them left Oklahoma, a lot of them that had left. Probably the biggest one that may be known in this area is Dr. John Reed. He was on the team that won the state championship, and he had the church here in Oklahoma City. So he did a lot and had a big impact for Oklahoma City, but he never left the Washington School. We lost him last year. He passed right after the thing, but he was always a part of the Washington School and a big believer that his dad was the minister at the black church that was in the Ville. So he went on, and then some of the other ones, they look and support and come in the reunion, but none of them really moved back to Stillwater. So, you know, when you leave and you experience what they experienced, they didn't move back. They made their life and family where they were at because they went on to go to college and go to other places, but they did not actually move back to Stillwater that I can think of right off the top of my head. Now, Principal Ward, he lived in Stillwater, so he stayed a little while longer because I think he was able to get a job. And then the teachers left because they was not able to get a job. So I don't have anybody that I can name right off the top of my head that did stay or what they're actually doing, and we're continuing to work on that to see if we can find and get that information.
And we are fervently conducting oral histories with everyone who will talk to us. We're really fortunate to have all the resources of OSU and the Oklahoma Oral History Research Program. And so there is active documentation that is happening. We talk to alumni every chance that we get.
I'm a vet, and one of the guys in my group, I believe, graduated from there. So I'd like to, if I could, after you give a presentation, I'd like him to come up so I can get some information. He's near 80 and he's not in very good health, but I want to see if I can get information from somebody so he can contact.
Wonderful.
All right, one more, and then we got to wrap this. Uh-oh. You're up.
Excuse me. I was just going to say that I think that reflecting the history and the accomplishments of graduates, even though they may live elsewhere, is important for the community to recognize and to understand. So I encourage you to, just like John Reed, who's gone on to be the minister of one of the largest churches in Oklahoma City, there are other people around the country who got their beginnings there at the school, there in Stillwater. And so I think it still is of interest, anything that you can dig up on them or have other people to dig up on them, that would be important to reflect that these people got their roots, their early training right here in Stillwater. And so I encourage you to do that.
Thank you. And we will do that. That is our plans, but I do appreciate your comment, but we do. I agree. Like I said, I was the youngest, but they continue to tell me things. Like one of the ladies I remember was a warden here in Oklahoma City, one of the prisons here. She was a warden. So there's a lot of them, but we're going to get that as well. So thank you so much for your comment.
I also encourage you to invite, as you have other openings there, community groups to come in and utilize it for their meetings or for their social events, or so that it becomes a real center of activity for everybody in the community. And that keeps it alive. It keeps other people seeing it, and they encourage them to do something with their older property. So I applaud you for doing this.
And when I ran down the list of future uses, I missed community events. That's one of the items that is on the list.
Real quick question. I was curious, the flooding problems that you highlighted earlier, that is kind of the history of that area. Is that being mitigated in some way, or are you still facing that as a problem long term?
Well, it's not a problem if you move everything up above 4 feet. Actually, and the architect's probably better at answering this question than I, but when we first started looking at this several years ago, if you go to FEMA, they have how to construct a building or how to renovate a building to flood. And that's what we'll do. It would be next to impossible to entirely mitigate the possibility of flooding at that building.
Yeah, in short,
All
we know
right.
it's going to flood. We're going to, sorry, who was? Dazza, we know it's going to flood. We're planning for that. That's part of telling this history too. So we actually feel okay about it.
Okay, we have to wrap it up now. We've got more sessions coming in. Thank you, guys. Great presentation.